Good Friday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for May the 12th. Today we are reading together in Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4. This is going to conclude again, just depending on how you break down, depending on how you break down the different speeches of Deuteronomy. For some, this would conclude here in chapter 4, the first speech. I think the one I shared with you at the beginning of our study was 1 through 11, the first section, 12 through 26, the second, and 37 through 34, or 27 through 34, being the final section. One of my resources, I think his name is Daniel Block. He breaks it down 1 through 4. And I think right at the end of 4 through the beginning of chapter 29, and then the rest of 29 through 34. So, or actually, that's not even true. The rest of so it's 29 and 30, and then 31 through 34 details Moses's death. So it just depends on what you're looking at. For some, though, this is the conclusion of the opening speech of Moses here in Deuteronomy. So let's consider that together today. Let me get the text up on the screen for us so we can read along together. Lots of yellow on the screen today, which it is there to remind us this is either something concerning who Yahweh is or what he has instructed, something concerning his law. This yellow portion, again, just focuses on Yahweh. So we see that, so it stands out a little bit more to us. So you can really see in this text then the emphasis that Moses is putting on Yahweh and his law, his character, and a need to be obedient to him. So let's read together here in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse number 1. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse number 1. Now Israel, listen to the statutes and ordinances I am teaching you to follow, so that you may live, enter, and take possession of the land Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. You must not add anything to what I command you, or take anything away from it, so that you may keep the commands of Yahweh your God I am giving you. Your eyes have seen what Yahweh did at Baal Peor. For Yahweh your God destroyed every one of you who followed Baal of Peor. But you who have remained faithful to Yahweh your God are all alive today. Look, I have taught you statutes and ordinances as Yahweh my God has commanded me, so that you may follow them in the land you are entering to possess. Carefully follow them, for this will show your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the peoples. When they hear about all these statutes, they will say, this great nation is indeed a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God near to it, as Yahweh your God is to us whenever we call to him? And what great nation has righteous statutes and ordinances, like this entire law I set before you today? Only be on your guard and diligently watch yourselves, so that you don't forget the things your eyes have seen, so that they don't slip from your mind as long as you live. Teach them to your children and your grandchildren. The day they stood before Yahweh your God at Horeb, Yahweh said to me, assemble the people before me, and I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and may instruct their children. You came near and stood at the base of the mountain, a mountain blazing with fire into the heavens and enveloped in a totally black cloud. Then Yahweh spoke to you from the fire. You kept hearing the sound of the words, but didn't see a form. There was only a voice. He declared this covenant to you. He commanded you to follow the 10 commandments, which he wrote on 2 stone tablets. At that time, Yahweh commanded me to teach you statutes and ordinances for you to follow in the land you are about to cross into and possess. Diligently watch yourselves, because you did not see any form on the day Yahweh spoke to you out of the fire at Horeb. So you don't act corruptly and make an idol for yourselves in the shape of any figure, a male or female form, for the form of any animal on the earth, any winged creature that flies in the sky, any creature that crawls in the ground, or any fish in the waters under the earth. When you look to the heavens and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the stars in the sky, do not be led astray to bow and worship to them and serve them. Yahweh your God has provided them for all the people everywhere under heaven. But Yahweh selected you and brought you out of Egypt's iron furnace to be a people for his inheritance, as you are today. Yahweh was angry with me on your account. He swore that I would not cross the Jordan and enter the good land Yahweh your God is giving you as an inheritance. I won't be crossing the Jordan because I'm going to die in this land. But you You are about to cross over and take possession of this good land. Be careful not to forget the covenant of Yahweh your God that he made with you, and make an idol for yourselves in the shape of anything he has forbidden you. For Yahweh your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. When you have children and grandchildren and have been in the land a long time, and if you act corruptly, make an idol in the form of anything and do what is evil in the sight of Yahweh your God, angering him, I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you today that you will quickly perish from the land you are about to cross the Jordan to possess. You will not live long there, but you will certainly be destroyed. Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be reduced to a few survivors among the nations where Yahweh your God will drive you. There you will worship man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see, hear, eat, or smell. But from there you will search for Yahweh your God, and you will find him when you seek him with all your heart and all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things have happened to you in the future, you will return to Yahweh your God and obey him. He will not leave you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with your ancestors that he swore to them by oath, because Yahweh your God is a compassionate God. Indeed, ask about the earlier days that preceded you, from the day God created mankind on the earth, and from the one end of the heavens to the other. Has anything like this great event ever happened? Or has anything like it been heard of? Has a people heard God's voice speaking from the fire as you have and lived? Or has a God attempted to go and take a nation as his own out of another nation by trials, signs, wonders, and war, by a strong hand and an outstretched arm, by great terrors, as Yahweh your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? You were shown these things so that you would know that Yahweh is God. There is no other besides him. He has let you hear his voice from heaven to instruct you. He has showed you his great fire on the earth, and you heard his voice from the fire because he loved your ancestors. He chose their descendants after them and brought you out of Egypt by his presence and great power, to drive out before you the nations greater and stronger than you, and to bring you in and give you their land as an inheritance, as is now taking place today. Recognize and keep in mind that Yahweh is God in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Keep his statutes and commands, which I'm giving you today, so that you and your children after you may prosper, and so that they may live in the land, or live long in the land Yahweh your God is giving you for all time. Then Moses set apart 3 cities across the Jordan to the east. Someone could flee there who committed manslaughter, killing his neighbor accidentally without previously hating him. He could flee to one of these cities and stay alive. Bezer in the wilderness on the plateau land belonging to the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead belonging to the Gadites, or Golan in Bashan belonging to the Manassites. This is the law, and right here, so the end of verse 43, some would cut that off and say that's the end of the first speech. So here is a little bit of a prologue into the second speech, according to some. This is the law, which again would make it a pretty poor chapter break, but nonetheless, verse 44, this is the law Moses gave the Israelites. These are the decrees, statutes, and ordinances Moses proclaimed to them after they came out of Egypt, across the Jordan in the valley, facing Beth Peor in the land of King Sihon of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon. And Moses and the Israelites defeated him after they came out of Egypt. They took possession of his land, the land of Og, king of Bashan, the 2 Amorite kings who were across the Jordan to the east, from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Valley, as far as Mount Sion, that is Hermon, and all the Arabah on the east side of the Jordan, as far as the Dead Sea below the slopes of Pisgah. And that is Deuteronomy chapter 4. This last section of this first speech, again, as some would judge it, is a call to obedience, but it's not just a call to obedience based upon nothing. It is really built upon the reality of what the Israelites have experienced, and how what they have experienced and what they have seen should move them and motivate them to obey God and to maintain covenant loyalty. That's something I'm going to stress so much, and have stressed already throughout this text, is the reality of covenant loyalty and how that was demanded by God from his people, that he, by his sovereignty, by his will, entered into this covenant with them, And there's still, though, even with that divine decree and that divine will, there is a responsibility on their part to do something as well, and that is to show loyalty to the covenant, to allow God to be who he is, which is God, the one whom they are to follow, and then to be a people who do the following, who follow after him, respect him, honor him, and glorify him through their loyalty to the covenant. So a lot of it's based upon, again, what they have seen, that you have seen what took place at the different places I mentioned here. There's Baal Peor. You've seen what took place there. You saw what took place at Mount Sinai. You saw what took place in Egypt. You've seen what's taken place since we've left there, these victories that we had. And all of these things, you are just compounding evidence that shows you the right thing for you to do is to be loyal to Yahweh. To be loyal to Yahweh. And in doing so, you're going to keep the covenant. Now, there's going to be a benefit for them. I'm thinking specifically about verse number 6, that carefully follow them, for this will show your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the peoples. So whenever they see Israel performing the ordinances and keeping the statutes of the law, they're going to see very wise and understanding people. And they're going to think, wow, this nation is so smart. They show such wisdom. They show so much understanding of how things ought to work. Well, surely it's not because of them, but it's because of the God whom they serve, the God that they are able to reach out to and to speak to and to have communication and relationship with. What great nation has righteous statutes and ordinances like this entire law? I said before today, you will be set apart, not just because God is your God, but because you are following the covenant and the law that he has given you. And that is going to make you better than the rest. But again, you must be on guard. You must be diligent. You cannot forget. You cannot let these things slip from your minds. You must teach your children. Teach your children about what you learned at Sinai and recognize the superiority of Yahweh against all other gods. Again, the gods of the ancient pagan gods of the ancient Near East, they were often imaged through idols. And yet, as we get to verse number 15, we see that you don't do that for Yahweh. Yahweh is different. He cannot be contained in images. And what's interesting about verses 15 through 20 is that really what we have here is a reverse of the creation order. So number one, don't make any figure, any image of God. Don't make something that's supposed to represent him out of human form, out of animal form, whether it's animals on the earth or flying creatures or creatures that crawl on the ground or fish in the sea. Don't worship the stars in the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars. Don't be led away to worship them. Don't image anything according to them. All these things that you could make an image out of, that you could use to represent Yahweh in an image, well, Yahweh gave them to you. Do not worship the creation rather than the creator. He cannot be contained in image. The closest thing that contains the image of Yahweh, of course, is us. So we already are, in a sense, idols before him. If someone wants to see Yahweh, the best thing they can do is look to their fellow man. And in doing so, you will see the reflection of Yahweh. So don't do this. Don't be led away in the paganism that you see all around you. Now, Moses once again brings up in verse 21 the fact that he's not going to get to enter the land. That's been a sore subject for Moses on a number of occasions. We see that some back in Numbers. We've seen it a couple times here in Deuteronomy. I think we're going to see it one more time in Deuteronomy as well. So your failures have led to my demise because, again, we should never have been here in the first place. We should already be in the land, should already be settling it. I should have about 40 years ago. But that is what it is. I'm not going to cross over, Moses says, but you are. You are. Don't waste this opportunity. Don't waste this opportunity. Be careful. Again, we see that on a number of occasions, this language of be on guard, be diligent, be watchful, be careful. Be careful not to forget the covenant of Yahweh, your God, he made with you. Again, reemphasizing, do not make an idol for yourselves in the shape of anything he has forbidden you. Don't do it. But if you do, beginning in verse number 25, if you do act corruptly, if you do make an idol, if you do what is evil in his sight, if you anger him, then I'm calling heaven and earth as my witness right now that you will quickly perish from the land that you're about to go over to possess. You're not going to live there long. You're going to be scattered among the people, scattered among the nations, where there's going to be a reversal of what has previously taken place, where you have become like the stars of the sky. Instead of being multiplied like that, you're going to be dwindled down to just a few survivors. And if that happens, then as you go into these other lands, you're going to compound your sin. You will go into the land because of sin, and in that land you will sin further, because there you will worship man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see, hear, eat, or smell. Again, there is no comparison to the true God. There you're going to hit rock bottom. You're going to hit rock bottom. And when that happens, you will find him when you seek him with all your heart and all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things happen to you, you will return to Yahweh your God and obey him. And he will not leave you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with your fathers that he swore to them by an oath, because the Lord your God, because Yahweh your God is a compassionate God. Unlike the other gods, unlike even kings of the earth, Yahweh is compassionate. Yahweh is compassionate. Here's the thing, we read this as really, again, a prophecy, a foretelling what is going to take place. But here it's a warning. So Moses then in verse 32 gives them again some extra oomph behind the warning. Recognize the unique position that you're in as Yahweh's people. Recognize how special you are. From the days of creation, what God has done for you in the Exodus, what God has done for you at Sinai, what God has done for you in all these places, none of it can find comparison. God has done more for you than anyone else. Do not waste this opportunity. Today, verse 39, recognize and keep in mind that Yahweh is God in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Keep his statutes and commands, which I'm giving you today, so that you and your children after you may prosper, and so that you may live long in the land Yahweh your God is giving you for all time. Live long in the land. You have the opportunity to do that, but it's going to demand covenant loyalty. Well, here to finish out the chapter, we see what might seem kind of a random inclusion of the cities of refuge. This is going back to Numbers 35 and verses 9 through 34. It's also going to be spoken about again in Joshua chapter 20. But here again, all the language is this land that you're about to cross the Jordan to take possession of. You need to be mindful of it, that you keep the covenant there. But remember, not everybody's going to cross over. There's going to be the tribe of Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh who are going to be here. This seems to be maybe just a reminder of them, hey, we know you already have your land, but you are still responsible for the covenant as well. And that is true for the cities of refuge, Bezir, Ramoth, and Golan. These are cities of refuge. Again, go back to Numbers 35 and you can read about those situations. And then again, beginning verse 44, this seems to be, again, according to some, and I can see this, the beginning of the second address, the prologue into the second address, that this law that I am giving you, which a lot of law is contained in this section, beginning in chapter 5, going through about chapter 26, or I guess all the way through 28 and the beginning of 29, as some judge. These are the decrees, statutes, and ordinances that Moses proclaimed to them after they came out of Egypt. God helped them to overcome these Amorite kings. He helped them to defeat them. You've seen what God will do for you. Now listen and hear these covenants and commands so that you might, again, live long in the land. That's Deuteronomy chapter 4. I do want to focus just on one thing for us to take away. Going back to verses, let's see here, verses 25 through 31, we see two of the strong characteristics of God: his justice and the fact that he will punish those who are disloyal to his covenant, but also his compassion, that he will bless those who seek them with all of their hearts and souls. So the question is, which God are we going to experience? Are we going to experience the God of justice and punishment against the evildoer? Or will we experience the God of compassion, mercy, and grace as those who humble themselves before him? That is totally up to us. We get to choose which God we will experience. May we remember what he has done for us. May we remember the stories that we're reading about here in the Pentateuch, in these first 5 books of the entire Bible, because they teach us who God is. They teach us what he is capable of. And it is only further evidence to help build this strong case that we need to be loyal to him in every way. May we do so and experience his compassion instead of experiencing his judgments. I appreciate so much you tuning into this reading on this Friday. Looking forward to being with everybody tonight as we, those who are able to make it to Joanne's funeral service, the visitation funeral service tonight from 5 to 7, and the funeral beginning at 7 at the McGill Click Funeral Home. If you have any questions or comments about this text here in Deuteronomy 4, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. And I appreciate you reading along with me. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, reading together in Deuteronomy chapter 5, which is going to focus a lot on the 10 Commandments. We'll have a bit of a rehashing of that text then. Again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Friday, everyone. Take care, and God bless.